Waterdeep, city of splendors, crown of the north, and beneath its sprawling gold-laden streets, the Undermountain, 23 levels of maddening, twisting Byzantine ruins built upon the bones of an ancient dwarven civilization, by this man, Alistair Blackcloak, the Mad Mage himself. There are only a few ways inside this underground labyrinth, but the most famous by far is via the Yawning Portal Tavern. Here, adventurers vie for fame and fortune by volunteering to descend into the darkness and take their chance at glory amongst the horrors found below. The Undermountain has claimed many a soul over the years, but for those brave few who have emerged victorious from its depths, untold riches have been theirs for the taking. Enter our heroes! Gorn, a smelly dwarven gravekeeper with an attitude problem and a magical swarm of flies. Davlin, a rather camp pirate. Murin, a brave dwarf paladin. And Sterling, a halfling rogue. Don't worry about remembering their names, they don't last very long. While in the tavern, each of the party members picks up a rumour about the Undermountain below. Gorn hears that there are drow living in the Undermountain. The word is that some of these drow are terrified of one of Alistair's apprentices, Mural. Meanwhile, Volo, yes, the Volo, the famous adventurer and writer of note, approaches the party and asks for their help tracking down an alabaster throne located in the dungeon. He promises a significant reward in exchange. With this, the party meets, instantly takes a disliking to each other, and descends into the depths of the Undermountain. Level 1. And this level is a sprawling maze that has mostly been picked clean by prior adventuring parties. After exploring some side rooms and learning the lay of the land, the party comes across a group of bugbear who attempt to flee. The party brings the bugbears down, only to discover that there are intellect devourers lurking inside their skulls which come to life once the host bodies have been killed and turn on the party. The intellect devourers attack Murin, draining him of every trace of intelligence and leaving him completely brain-dead. After finishing off the intellect devourers, the party lovingly loots his body and sends him back upstairs. He lasted about 10 minutes of in-game time, though technically he is still alive. A new party member joins the team shortly afterwards, Drax the Tiefling Mage, who is very intelligent and therefore unlikely to fail any future saving throws against intellect devourers, and they continue on their way, heading in the same direction that the bugbear tried to run in. The party finds themselves in a Xanathar's Guild hideout run by a ragtag group of goblins. The party takes out all but one of the goblins, and Drax, being extremely intelligent, decides to take symbols of the Xanathar's Guild from their bodies to make the party look like fellow guild members. Gorn takes one of the goblins alive with him to act as a canary in the coal mine and warn the party of upcoming dangers, but he does not do this job very well and dies shortly afterwards to a couple of ghostly shades. Around the corner, the party comes face to face with a shield guardian who appears to be under the impression that it can cast magic. It cannot. And the party gives chase, but in the process they stumble upon some bandits guarding a doorway. "Who are you?" say the bandits. "We are from the Xanathar's Guild. Can't you see our symbols?" says Drax, who, once again I need to reiterate, is very intelligent. So it turns out that these bandits are not in fact from the Xanathar's Guild and are instead with a rival gang who are at war with the Xanathar's Guild. This group is a bunch of vampires who live in a shady speakeasy where they lounge about all day drinking blood and bemoaning their lot in life. However, it isn't long before the party sees through their disguises and realises that these aren't actually vampires at all, but rather a bunch of goobers cosplaying as vampires, which is just sad. Their leader appears and gloats about having captured Xanathar's spies. If the party want to go free, he says, they will have to fulfill a quest. Apparently, his ex-girlfriend lives nearby. She is a failed opera singer, and he wants her head. By the way, this is a recurring theme in this campaign. Almost every single quest NPC we come across seems to ask for the head of someone for one reason or another. Not only that, but practically every statue you come across in this place is headless, as is practically every corpse you find. It's honestly quite weird how much this comes up once you start looking for it. I even made a joke video about it. Chris Perkins, writer of this book, you have a weird beheading fetish, my friend. I'm just saying. It's weird. Anyway, following the vampire leader's directions, the party manages to track down the failed opera singer who is being protected by a flesh golem. The party takes out both, but decides not to kill her, instead opting to leave her alive because screw that wannabe vampire leader thinking he's so cool, can't even be bothered to walk 10 feet outside his own bedroom and break up with someone properly. No, he's got to hire strangers to cut off her head instead. You've got issues, mate. Big issues. Anyway, Gorn wasn't there for the next session, which is a good thing because it was a bloodbath. It turns out that the ex-girlfriend was in fact searching for a magical blue crystal. That's why she broke up with the vampire leader. The party offers to help her find it. She shows them where she thinks the crystal is, and armed with this knowledge, the party then decides to stab her in the back, hack off her head and take the item for themselves, because that's the type of heroic action that really gets people rooting for you. Our moral crusaders then find themselves in a room with a giant bubble of acid suspended in the air, and unsurprisingly this turns out to be a trap, which they of course trip. Drax and Davlin drown in acid and lose consciousness, however they successfully roll their death saves and stabilise. Meanwhile, Sterling thinks that this would be the perfect opportunity to investigate that blue crystal they found. He spends an hour attuning to it, only to discover that the blue stone is in fact cursed, and attuning to it swaps out your heart for the crystal, killing you instantly. Drax and Davlin come back to consciousness, only to find Sterling dead and an exact copy of the blue crystal clutched in his hand. Drax, our very intelligent wizard, casts Identify on the stone, and the spell comes back with the words, "This stone doubles your hit points when you attune to it." The party still has that stone, by the way. They have no idea what it is or what it does. And before they've had a chance to use it, the surviving members of the party go around the corner, set off another trap, and then both of them die instantly in a massive fireball. Gorn comes back to the table 1 week later to find himself with an entirely new party. This new team is Lantix, a terrified human wizard whose spells all revolve around survivability and running away, Tarmin, a half-orc barbarian who is convinced that he's actually a paladin, and Kronos, a Goliath barbarian who is just as intelligent as Drax used to be. Again, don't worry about remembering their names, they don't last very long. Manticores and trolls are the order of the day in the next part of the dungeon, and almost straight away it becomes too much for the party's cowardly wizard Lantix, who is so scared he uses a brief moment while the area is obscured by fog cloud to deliberately run away from combat and flee the campaign altogether, taking the party's bag of holding and most of their loot with him. Since then, Lantix has repeatedly popped up from time to time throughout the dungeon as a DMPC, and I'm sure he will be seen again in the future. No time to rest, however, as Lantix is shortly replaced by a new character, Bolene the Bard. Bolene is Snow White. Quite literally, she's Snow White, very innocent, friendly to animals and small critters, a bit stupid, and followed everywhere at all times by 1d6+2 woodland critters. At this point, I should say the party is utterly exhausted. They are 4 sessions in, they've lost 5 party members just getting through 1 floor of the dungeon, and they desperately want to level up, so they laser focus on finding the stairs. They return the girlfriend's head to the vampire leader, who it turns out is actually sad that she's dead and didn't want her dead after all, no comment, but they do manage to get directions out of him to the stairs to the next floor. They head south, pretty much ignoring all distractions along the way until they find the stairs. On the way, they encounter a man trapped inside a pit. He claims to be a famous musician who's looking to get revenge on the rest of his band, I've been there, who threw him down the pit to die. Also, he is quite literally dead. Undead, one might say. Reluctantly, the party helps him out when it's clear that he's quite strong and doesn't mean them any harm. The party also finds a map, kind of like a mall map, etched onto the wall, showing in highly stylised way what dangers and threats lie in store for them on each level of the dungeon ahead. Shortly after this, they are set upon by another group of bugbear intellect devourers, and this time it is Gorn's turn to meet his maker. Gorn dies bravely at the top of the stairs alongside his new undead friend, holding back the tide, while the rest of the party bravely flee to the floor below. That was level 1. Level 2, and straight away the party hears a disembodied voice calling out to them to help defeat the Mad Mage Hallister Blackcloak. They have no idea who this voice is, she doesn't respond when they try and speak with her, and they haven't been able to speak to her since. As soon as they arrive on this floor, the party encounters Yvette, a grumpy human fighter with one eye and one hand who has clearly been through a rough time with things. The party travels to the Goblin Market, a huge open market space where for the first time in the campaign they have a chance to interact with non-hostile NPCs, or at least non-hostile at first. For the party quickly makes a nuisance of themselves. It turns out that the leader of the goblins is a human man named Yek the Tall. He has a prisoner in his room, according to rumours, and Yvette, who was once a prisoner herself, doesn't take too kindly to the idea of people in captivity and vows to break him out. It turns out that this prisoner is also from the same band of musicians as the undead friend that they made on the floor above. He's a naked dwarf who has scandalously been shorn of his beard. As soon as he's freed from captivity, he shares a map of the next floor with Yvette, don't ask where he was keeping it, and he immediately goes on a murderous rampage against the goblins. Meanwhile, Kronos is getting into a heated argument next door as he's attempting to negotiate a healing potion for 20 gold pieces and is refusing to settle for less. A fight breaks out. Yek the Tall turns up trying to calm things down, but in the chaos he gets his head hacked off and it turns out he was a goblin all along, but one that was wearing a magical circlet that made him appear to be a human. At this point, everyone is fighting everyone, it's utter chaos. The party steals a bunch of healing potions, deposits some gold, not nearly enough, and they leg it before things can get any worse. Things quickly get worse. The party finds themselves travelling through rooms that belong to one of Hallis's apprentices. It's like a human bedsit, it's filthy, cluttered, lots of empty bottles lying everywhere, and a chest upon which is written a note to self that says, "Do not spend this money on booze." The chest is empty. Of the apprentice himself there is no sign, though there is a summoning circle underneath the carpet, which the party decides to leave alone. Finally, there's a room with an organ in it. Kronos the barbarian, who by now is wearing the human disguise circlet, so he looks like Yek the Tall used to, plays notes randomly on the organ, and immediately all of the flesh from his fingers disappears, leaving him with skeleton hands for the rest of the campaign. However, Bolene the bard can actually read music, and so she plays the organ correctly to unlock a hidden compartment inside which is a spell scroll of Raise Dead. And for whatever reason, maybe because the party aren't enjoying their new one-eyed fighter, or maybe they're just sick of seeing people die, but for whatever reason, they immediately decide to take this spell scroll back with them all the way to the first floor, the one and only time in this entire campaign that the party has actually backtracked through the dungeon, and there they find Gorn's body on the ground exactly where they left it. Bolene uses the spell scroll, she brings Gorn back to life at -4 to all of his stats for the next 4 days, and Gorn is revived. Thus begins the subplot of Gorn increasingly acting like a simp towards Bolene, as he finds himself indebted with gratitude towards the Disney bard that quickly turns into unrequited infatuation. He does, however, bring back with him something else from the grave, for you see, in death, Gorn met with Kalambor, the god of the dead, who told him that it wasn't his time, and empowered Gorn to return with powers which he learned from his time between life and death, a newfound hatred for the undead, and powers that would in time manifest as him multiclassing into a Circle of Spores druid. Yvette leaves the party shortly afterwards, citing crazy magical nonsense, but she'll probably be seen again one day, once Gorn is dead. In the meantime, the party moves on. This time the party moves through a laboratory belonging to yet another of Hallis's apprentices. This one has been doing strange experiments involving copper and electricity. Surprise! The apprentice is actually an electric flame skull, and her entire laboratory is one giant electrolyzed room. The party takes her down and they escape through a secret passage into the hallway beyond. Here they find a massive pile of dead bodies, hobgoblins who have been piled up into what is obviously a makeshift barricade, and beyond it there are signs of spiders. Drow. Before the party can get to the Drow, however, first they have some Nothics to contend with, and, well, maybe it's the relentless chip damage they've all sustained throughout this floor, maybe it's because the party is overly flushed with confidence at having one of their dead team members revived to them, or maybe it's just because our bard isn't with us that session, and so the entire party is made up of melee fighters with no magic, but for whatever reason, this fight goes very poorly, and this time it is the turn of Tarmin the half-orc to throw himself at the danger and perish. On the far side of the chamber, there is a magically sealed door which the party can't open. Kronos tries to pull the door open by force and fails. None of the party are magic casters. It's all a bit of a dead end. So the party heads back the way they came, and there they meet their newest party member, a hobgoblin druid standing next to that pile of corpses of his fellow kin, and as the only member of the party with all of his HP and spell slots intact, this new party member is feeling extremely self-assured, to the point that when, in the very next room, he encounters two gibbering mouthers, he immediately transforms into a bear, throws himself at both of them at once, and promptly dies. He was with the party for less than half an hour of real-world time. I honestly never even wrote down his name. Oh well, I'm sure that was worth it though. I'm sure that once the party pushes on through this tunnel and goes around this corner and then oh no, it's all just one big circle. They've been walking in circles. Well, luckily the DM threw the party a bone at this point and had Lantix turn up out of nowhere just long enough to cast Knock on the magically sealed door and then vanish again. Huzzah. On the other side of the door, the party meets Halton, a halfling paladin with the personality of Scrappy-Doo, and here, finally, the party finds themselves in Drow territory. House Ovrindar are making inroads on the second floor, led by their charismatic mage leader Rizaril and the help of some local were-rats. He threatens the party and tells them to help him in his fight against the Xanathar's Guild. Apparently there are 2 Xanathar leaders on this floor, Nadia the Unbent and Shun, and he wants the party's help to take out both of them and, say it with me now, bring him their heads. Chris, I see you over there. From this, the party can see that the stairs to the next floor are in the same direction as one of these Xanathar outposts. So they say, sure, we can help you, and they quickly hot-tail it in the direction of the Deadeye outpost. Once again, the party tries wearing the Xanathar Guild symbols, and this time, because they no longer have an extremely intelligent wizard with them, it turns out to be a great plan. A zombie beholder is watching over the area. It takes one look at the party, sees the symbol, and goes back to sleep. Beyond this, the party finds Nadia the Unbent, the fearless leader of the Xanathar's Guild. Nadia is a tough-as-nails bruiser who is in the midst of a friendly wrestling match with her own men when the party arrives. The party takes one look at the situation, realises that they are outnumbered about 10 to 1, and decides that there is no way that they're going to win this fight. Instead, they use their knowledge of this floor to convince Nadia that they're actually allies. They tell her about the intellect devourers, they tell her about the drow of House Ovrindar making inroads, and after this, she believes the party implicitly. To prove how strong the party is, Halton the Paladin even offers to fight Nadia in one-on-one unarmed combat, in which he easily defeats her, sportingly leaving her with 1 HP. After this, and having won her trust, the party tells her, turf warfare, that's the way out of this. The Xanathar's Guild should move against the drow, right here, right now. Her forces, combined with the party, would easily be able to strike him down. He won't suspect a thing, and she agrees. However, by this point it's getting to the end of the session, the stairs to the next floor are right there, and so the party think, you know what? Screw this place, we want to level up. But the DM says no, the situation is unresolved. He says, you haven't reached the milestone point yet, and with only 10 minutes to go until the end of the session, what should we do? Fine, we'll end it quickly. So the party asks to speak with Nadia privately to one side, away from prying eyes. She's only 1 HP and she trusts us implicitly, so killing her and hacking off her head is trivial at this point. The party sneaks back out and returns the head to Rizaril. Great. Now the next one, he says. Well, it turns out that the next one is actually his cousin, another drow called Shun, who has been cursed by Lulth, so she turned into a weird spider mutant abomination. At first, the party tries to be sneaky and enter her area through the back, but when all this results in is an encounter with a literally house-sized gelatinous cube and a room filled with water and a very dead wizard who had accidentally opened a portal to the plane of water, they decide to go back to plan A and open the front entrance instead. The party approaches cautiously, once again trying the same tactic of pretending to be friends, but this Xanathar's leader isn't like Nadia and she doesn't believe the party, especially since none of the party know the Xanathar Guild's passcode. Her guards attack, they take Kronos hostage, and being the stoic, hard-as-nails man that he is, Kronos starts to tell Shun everything. Fortunately, in this moment of frantically looking through his notes, Gorn remembers the rumour that he heard up in the yawning portal.
"Morale!" he cries. "Morale is coming! Stop messing about! We need everyone from the Xanathar's Guild, every able-bodied fighter, to help us now! He's already taken out Nadia the Unbent, and now he's coming for you!"
And wouldn't you know it, she believes him. Shun is terrified, and she offers to fake her death and go into hiding to get away from Morale. To prove that she's dead, she gives the party her cloak, and the party then takes this cloak back to Rizaril, and finally happy, he gives them the symbol of his house and allows them to proceed downstairs where they level up after first taking a small and fruitless detour through an old dwarven temple.